Hey guys, my name is Jean, and I've been serving as a member of the praise team for around 4 or 5 years now, so you may have seen me singing, but now I've decided to become a small group teacher, which I'm really excited for. So before I get into my testimony, some facts about myself is I'm currently 17. I was born in May. I am going into my senior year of high school. A future career path that I am interested in pursuing is nursing, and I'm a full-time Running Start student at Edmonds Community College. I feel like my journey started for me whenever I moved to Washington. So I grew up in Illinois and I was raised in Hawaii for around 7 years, and I think throughout the time that I was living there, I've never really encountered someone with really great faith, or I've never looked up to someone or had someone who really left a mark in my life. So, I'd say that I grew up in the church when most people ask me, but realistically, I was pretty half and half. I went to church up until I was 7 years old, and then I was in and out of church until I was 11. So there was a period of time where my family didn't go to church, but luckily God brought us back and I started attending Joyful Youth Ministry. Obviously back then I didn't know the importance of going to church, and I really thought it was an inconvenience for me, but I never lost faith in Jesus. I think that's pretty weird to me because, if you're that young and you stop going to church, you most likely don't grow up believing in Jesus. But I don't remember a time where if something was hard, I didn't pray to God. I always prayed to Him through everything. And so as I said before, I think things really started to shift for me when I moved here. I moved to Washington State, and this is kind of hard to admit, but I hated going to church. I would do everything I could to convince my mom to not take me to church. I made so many excuses to get out of going to church because I just thought it was a chore. I didn't enjoy doing it. For most of middle school, I think I felt pretty lost in the church community. I didn't really feel as if the Joyful Youth Ministry was my church. I attended Friday night Bible studies at Seattle Vision Church, and I think that was where I really grew my faith and really grew my knowledge, because there were so many older leaders there where I could talk to them about a lot of my problems, and I felt that our church lacked a lot of that. But I realized that God has brought me there for a specific reason, to see the leadership so that I could bring it to this church, and I'm so grateful for that. So for most of middle school and to my freshman year of high school, I really struggled with my mental health. I always felt really hopeless. I hated interacting with a lot of people. I cut a lot of my friends out. I was so unhappy with myself, and in the beginning of 8th grade or the end of 7th grade, I decided to join the praise team. In the beginning, I think I was very happy with where I was, but as time went on, I grew more and more tired of coming to church, and I was really miserable while I was serving. For most of the time, I would stand there singing, lyrics praising God, but I was so angry at God as well because of my circumstances. I think the only reason why I stayed on the praise team, besides a lot of other factors, was because I felt the need to serve. I felt like I needed to give back to God, but I was not stable on the inside. I was like falling apart. I did not have faith in myself, first of all, to even serve. I stayed because I've been to church for, a couple years, and I felt like if I didn't continue, then I would, God would punish me. And because I didn't really fully understand the concept, because, it's difficult, because how are you supposed to know what unconditional love is if you've never been shown that before? But now I know that everything was, meant for God's plan, and it was actually a very big blessing in disguise, although it was a very difficult and long journey. The biggest thing that I realized is that He loves me so much despite all the anger that I had towards Him, all the bitterness that I had stored up in my heart. and he just released me from all of that, and that true joy comes from the Lord. So this is probably where I feel like those who have known me in the past 2 years know what I'm about to say, know my biggest struggle, and that was the terrible skin condition that I went through during my sophomore year of high school. That was probably the hardest thing I ever had to go through. It was the biggest physical and mental challenge. There would be certain weeks where I didn't come out to church because it was so hard for me to sit there and to not be in pain and to not cry. That was the first year or the first time in my life that everything was taken away from me. The things that I valued most in my life would probably be, appearance, grades, attendance, and all of these things. And God just decided to take all of that at once. And it was hard because I'm still in high school. I still think about what other people think of me, and you try to just fit in. All of my grades dropped to S because I didn't go to school, nor did I have the strength to do my homework at home. So I couldn't even do makeup work. I lost literally all my eyebrow hair. If you guys have seen me during that time, you guys know what I'm talking about. And I lost hair, my hair started falling out. I really thought I didn't have a chance for college. I thought I was screwed, my life was over. It was the first time in my life where I questioned God's existence. I started to tell myself that God isn't real, and why would he put me through this? Why is he so angry with me? And why me? Why, out of all these people, I know people who have done so much worse in their lifetime, why did you choose me to suffer the most? But it's funny because even though I told myself that all the time, I kept reading the Bible because I was literally hopeless. There was nothing for me to hold on to anymore. And I think it's so true when they say that God is everything and he's the foundation for our life, because I really experienced losing everything, and the only thing I had was God, and the only thing that helped me through it was God. A book in the Bible that I read the whole time during this really hard time was Job. And even though his situation was a lot worse than mine, a verse that stuck to me was, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. May the name of the Lord be praised." I repeated that so many times when I would sit in my room and cry, sit in my car and cry. And, I really hoped that God would just hear me and hear how desperate I was for his attention. I would literally scream at the top of my lungs. I don't think I've ever done that in my life, been so desperate to the point where I screamed and I prayed while screaming. And I'd always just scream, "God, I just want to be with you right now. Please let their suffering stop. I am so desperate. Please, if you're going to make me suffer, just come take me." And I think the thing that really got me through this whole thing was the constant prayer from the church. And this is where my life begins to start tying together. I've never felt more loved and so touched in my life. And that's when I realized there was really nothing else but my church community. The place where I absolutely hated going is where I received the most support and love. And after a long time, my cure finally came out. My doctor finally approved me for my medicine, and it was something that I never thought would come, and it happened just so fast. It felt like a really long time at the moment, but God really answered my prayer, and now I get to happily serve God because I simply I'm able to. And before I wasn't able to because I was stuck at home in pain and crying. I am just so incredibly grateful that he provided me with a community that I am so loved by. And that is my goal as a small group teacher, that I will be able to show my students love and support like the church has done for me so far. I'm really glad that God tied me down to a responsibility that I didn't think I could follow through on, because he had a plan for me at this church, and it is to serve you guys, to serve God, and to serve him with a happy heart. So I'm going to read you a verse from Matthew, because I think my whole life, the reason that I'm here today is because of the verses that God has given me in Matthew. But one that particularly stood out to me was Matthew 6:25-26. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at a verse that particularly stood out. A verse that particularly stood out to me was Matthew 6:25-26. A verse that particularly stood out to me was Matthew 6:25-26. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds or the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? And the reason why this verse has stuck out to me so much is because I had so much anxiety starting from, I'm not going to get into college, I'm not going to get anywhere in life, and I constantly complained to God about it, and he's just saying, I have this whole future set out for you, and why do you worry? And so yeah, that is why I love this verse, and I am super excited once again to be able to serve this ministry, and thank you guys so much for listening.